50 years ago, Iran looked completely different. Women walked the streets without hijabs, wearing modern fashion. Tehran was called the Paris of the Middle East. But today, the same country looks completely different. So, what happened in just a few decades that changed an entire nation forever? Look at these photos carefully. This is Iran in the 1970s. Modern cities, fashionable women, and a society moving toward the West. Now look at Iran today. How did a country transform so dramatically in less than 50 years? This might be the most surprising transformation in modern history. In the 1970s, Iran was one of the most modern societies in the Middle East. But after a single revolution, everything changed. At first glance, these photos look like they were taken in Europe, but they are actually from Iran in the 1970s. So how did this modern country transform into something completely different today? This is Iran, but not the Iran most people know today. Let's travel back to the 1970s, a time when the country looked very different. Tehran was rapidly becoming a modern city. Wide boulevards were filled with stylish cars. The skyline looked surprisingly European. Young people dreamed of a modern future. Music, fashion, and cinema were booming. Cafes and nightlife were everywhere. Many people called Tehran the Paris of the Middle East. Universities were full of ambitious students. Women were studying, working, and building careers. Western fashion was common on the streets. Colorful dresses and sunglasses defined the era. Culture and art were thriving. New businesses and companies were growing quickly. International travelers arrived every day. Iran seemed to be moving toward a modern future. The city felt energetic and optimistic. Everything looked bright and promising. Families enjoyed parks and weekend outings. Students debated ideas in universities. Artists and musicians created new trends. Television and film industries expanded rapidly. Luxury hotels welcomed visitors from around the world. Airports connected Iran to the global economy. Modern hospitals and schools were being built. Tehran became a symbol of modernization. Many believed the country's future was unstoppable. But beneath the surface, tensions were growing. Not everyone was happy with the government. Economic differences began to appear. Political voices started questioning the system. University students began discussing change. Small protests slowly appeared. Conversations about reform spread across cities. A sense of uncertainty grew in the air. The nation was quietly approaching a turning point. People began demanding a different future. Something big was about to happen. The streets started filling with discussions and debates. Public gatherings became more common. Students organized meetings and demonstrations. Voices of criticism became louder. Protests slowly began spreading. The government faced increasing pressure. People were no longer silent. Crowds started forming in major cities. Change was beginning to feel inevitable, and soon a revolution would begin. The streets suddenly filled with people. Protesters marched with determination. Thousands demanded political change. The atmosphere became tense and unpredictable. Demonstrations spread across the country. Universities became centers of protest. Students organized rallies and meetings. Crowds grew larger every day. People gathered in public squares. The protests were no longer small. Voices echoed through the streets. Banners and flags appeared everywhere. The movement was gaining momentum. People from different backgrounds joined together. The energy in the crowds was intense. The government struggled to control the situation. More demonstrations followed each day. Markets and neighborhoods discussed the crisis. The entire country was watching closely. The protests had become a national movement. Thousands marched through city streets. The crowds chanted powerful slogans. Anger and hope filled the air. Some protests turned into confrontations, but the movement kept growing. The momentum seemed unstoppable. Every day brought bigger demonstrations. The country stood at a crossroads. The tension was reaching its peak. A historic moment was approaching. Millions began supporting the movement. The protests spread to more cities. The call for change became louder. The world started paying attention. This was no longer just a protest. It was becoming a revolution. People refused to step back. A new future seemed possible. The country was on the edge of transformation, and soon everything would change. Massive crowds filled the streets. The old political order began collapsing. Hope and uncertainty mixed together. The revolution reached its peak. Iran was entering a historic moment. The entire world watched carefully. People waited for a new leadership. The future felt unpredictable. And then a key figure returned, changing the direction of the revolution forever. This was the moment that changed Iran forever. Crowds celebrated in the streets. The revolution had reached its climax. The old regime was falling apart. People believed a new era had begun. Flags and banners filled the sky. Thousands gathered in public squares. The atmosphere was emotional and historic. Faces showed hope and excitement. History was unfolding before their eyes. Supporters chanted for their new leader. Massive crowds welcomed his return. Streets overflowed with people celebrating. The nation was entering a new chapter. Political power shifted dramatically. The old system disappeared. A new government began forming. The direction of the country changed. New laws were introduced. Society started transforming rapidly. The political system was rebuilt. Religious leadership became central to governance. Many social rules began to change. Daily life started looking different. Iran moved onto a new path. The world watched the transformation. The country's identity was evolving. Society adjusted to new realities. People experienced dramatic changes. The revolution reshaped the nation. Cities felt different from before. New traditions became more visible. For some people, it meant hope. For others, it meant uncertainty. But history had already moved forward. The revolution defined the country's future. Decades later, its impact is still felt. Iran emerged with a new identity. The world now saw a different nation, and the story continued. This was more than politics. It was a transformation of society. Millions of lives were affected. A nation's identity changed forever. But the story does not end here. The real question is, what does Iran look like today? Has everything changed, or are some things still the same? Let's look at modern Iran. Today, Iran looks very different from the 1970s. The cities remain large and vibrant, but society has changed in many ways. A new generation now defines the country. Social rules are different than before. Religious culture plays a stronger role. Tradition and modern life coexist. Tehran remains the heart of the nation. Millions travel through the city every day. Life here moves quickly. Markets are crowded and lively. Mosques remain important community centers. Families play a central role in society. Young people still dream of the future. Universities remain full of students. Technology connects people to the world. Modern cars fill the highways. The metro carries thousands of commuters daily. At night, the city shines with lights. Life continues moving forward. Cafes and markets bring people together. Families spend time in public parks. Students work toward new opportunities. The city reflects both tradition and change. That contrast defines modern Iran, a nation shaped by its past, yet always looking toward the future. History still echoes in its streets, but new stories are being written, and the future remains uncertain. History shows that societies evolve. Change is always possible. Each generation shapes its own destiny. Iran is no exception. The last 50 years transformed the nation, yet the country keeps moving forward. The world continues watching closely, because history never truly ends. New chapters are always beginning, and the future is still unwritten. That is the power of history. A country can transform within decades. Iran is a powerful example. From the modern streets of the 1970s to the society we see today, the contrast is remarkable, and it reminds us how quickly things can change. Understanding the past helps us understand the present, and that is why history matters. This was the story of Iran, then and now.